All right, let's go. Getting
Hi,
things back again.
back again.
Here we go.
Me this time.
It
Hi.
is. Well, I saw something today and I couldn't help it. I had to wanted to get your full attention.
Okay.
Um
I have no idea what this is, but okay.
so I was going to Riverhead listening to Sevan in the car and he always leaves these little like tidbits, right? So like he'll do a 2-hour podcast and buried in there somewhere is something that like you really want to hear. So you
And it's probably one of the those things that you only pick up or very few people
yeah, you
actually pick up. Yeah.
yeah, you have to watch his entire episode to find these little nuggets that he's got buried in here. And one of them today was he was talking to David Attaway, an affiliate owner, super cool guy. It was actually a great listen. Go listen to it if you haven't at the Sevan podcast. But towards the end, the very end of the episode, he said something um, about giving CrossFit back to Greg Glassman.
Okay.
And I was like, and he was so funny about it too, right? Like, so he was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry I slept with your wife. I want, here, take her back." And Greg Glassman's like, "Yo, I don't want her back." And he's like, "Oh, but I'll pay you money to take her back." So like he was
Jeez.
basically like Greg Glassman he'll take CrossFit back, but he's not going to pay for it.
Mm.
Like the money that they paid to acquire CrossFit,
Mhm.
it's not like Greg Glassman's going to give it back and be like, "Oh, well, here's what you paid me.
To
Give it
get
back
out.
to me."
Yeah.
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 But it was kind of a question like, do we need a revolution? Is it like we have Dave back?
Mhm.
We kind of have Sevon back.
Mhm.
Where, and with this whole new affiliate with the uprising of the new affiliate director or whatever,
Mhm.
is there something kind of brewing?
Oh.
Because I would want Greg Glassman back. I absolutely would.
Why?
Because I just think that he has the best interest of the affiliates, the best interest of CrossFit at heart.
Mhm.
It's like giving your kid away, right? So I give my kid away. No one's going to take care of my kid better than I am. No
Mhm.
one's going to have the best interest of my child than me.
Mhm.
I give it away because I was forced to.
Mhm.
It just I would want him back. I think he would do the best thing for, and even if it's not for the games, right? Like even if he doesn't have the best, I don't know. I don't know how he feels about the games anymore. I don't know
Mhm.
any of those things, but I know he has the best interest for people getting fitter, people being healthier, people living longer, people, understanding how to do that. And I think it would be a better, I
Leader.
just want him back.
Like a better leader
Yeah.
for the affiliates. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think what started to happen was that the shift from his I don't I guess interests for a lack of a better
His
word
vision.
when it came to the games and the interest in Dave and everybody else in the game and the elite athletes and whatever. I think that there started to be a split in what that looked like because for um the way that I see it, the way that I saw it was two sides. When Greg decided to allow national champions to come to the games, it was a complete representation of everybody and anyone in in their country, and in a lot of ways individuals were able to fly their home country flag for the very first time in a public setting like the CrossFit Games. So I understand that principle of exposure. I understand that principle of like, if CrossFit is for everybody, why not show everybody in the biggest platform in the CrossFit space?
But do we even know that he was wrong about doing that? I know that people want to say like he was wrong for doing that. Do we even know though? He never even got more than, it was like he did that, and then 2020 he was gone.
Right, right. And that's what I was going to say, because from the other perspective of like, if you are legit trying to find the sport is, and the CrossFit Games is the quest to find the fittest person in the world. The fittest person in the world, and giving out what some people considered almost a free pass to being number one in your country compared to the elite of the elite athletes. I understand that argument too, because it's like, because certain number of spots had to be given. I don't know off the top of my head, but whatever it was, many people, from what I saw, this isn't like a personal, this isn't like someone personally told me this, but you can see how there's a certain number of athletes that were invited to the games that year. And to believe that all of the fittest people were there to fill those numbers, many people didn't believe that. I mean, take the first workout, for instance. There were athletes on the field that couldn't even snatch what that was.
I get
So
that.
you can understand both perspectives. And I think that is when it started to be a split from the vision of Greg for exposure and getting CrossFit everywhere and anywhere in the methodology. And again, putting it on the biggest platform that CrossFit has.
But to get from there to where we are now, like I think that's the little nugget that's like, you didn't give Greg an opportunity to let that model flow and see what that model did for CrossFit. And
well, my understanding is that the reason why he got fired was because of that particular tweet. So there was no opportunity to see if that was going to be a bigger statement or not.
yeah, he did. That's what I'm saying. Like, cancel culture canceled him. And then he didn't get to finish what he was about to start.
But I almost wonder if it was a conversation that was had where of like, listen, guys, yes, Greg is at that time was the owner of CrossFit and the genius behind the methodology of CrossFit and, the creator of it and whatever. But was there a conversation that said, listen, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm thinking to do. Or did he just pull, well, I'm in charge, so I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that if you're able to have a conversation and open up the lines of conversation, that it might have been received differently than it was received from the athletes that felt like, and the commentators that felt like, and the fans that felt like certain people took spots and it wasn't truly finding like the fittest the fittest weren't there.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I wonder if it goes back to the same point that I was just trying to make is just, he never got the chance to finish what he started. I'm sure that it was probably devastating for everybody when he started to make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And change sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Like, nobody likes change. My kid doesn't like change. I don't like change. Change sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had waited a little bit before being super overly sensitive, would we have gotten something better than we have now? Because now nobody's really, like, everybody's questioning. Nobody knows what's going on. HQ is distant. Mm-hmm. There's no media.
It's changed hands two times.
Too many times. No, more than that. It's changed hands a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. More times. Nobody knows what's going on. So, mm-hmm. what was better. And I guess we won't know what was better just because obviously we don't know what Greg would have done after
Yeah.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
But I I see a shift in little nuggets that Sevan is pushing out there makes it seem like everybody's kind of coming back.
Yeah, and it's hard to not want to know what would have been.
Yeah.
When things go a certain way and journeys take a certain direction or you take a different turn than you imagined or whatever. It's not everybody can get past the, well, what if it was this and what could have happened and whatever. And I like to kind of think of like where we are now, and something that the big question that I have in comparison to when it was Greg and it was Dave, was that Greg and Dave were the roots and the ground, like they were the consistent in CrossFit. They were the
Yeah,
roots
absolutely.
of CrossFit.
Yep.
So whatever else was going on around them, it was the roots of CrossFit. And then when Greg was let go and then Dave was let go, my question is like, who's the roots? Who's the ground floor? Who's the one that
Well
still
then
has their shit solid down there? Who's the foundation
well
of
then I
this?
would say that the absolute roots that are either were already there and kind of stayed there or are happening now are Sevan's Avengers. Like
Mhm.
they're the roots. There's no CrossFit media other than them, and whether you wanna call them CrossFit media or not, they are. And they're the only thing that we can go to get CrossFit media.
I wasn't even necessarily talking about CrossFit media. I was just talking about the roots of CrossFit.
The roots of CrossFit.
CrossFit HQ, like the roots of like who is the solid person of reason in CrossFit right now, because it just seems like that there's so many people that are
I think
coming in and leaving and
I
all that
think
type of
the
stuff.
only roots right now, the only roots that CrossFit can have to help them, like HQ, is the media, and the media is Sevan, Hiller, and Pedro.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, but they're not listening to the media.
No.
They're not listening to the media.
And that's the problem, and that's why I think it was really super interesting when Sevan was like, "Hey, are we just gonna give CrossFit back to Greg?" Because look, Dave Castro's listening.
Mhm.
Because Dave Castro goes on Sevan all the time, and Sevan does the Dave Castro weekly podcast.
Yeah.
So if that's also not a hint, that's a pretty big freaking hint.
Mhm.
Like when s- love him or hate him, when Sevan endorses somebody in HQ, they get they get paid attention to, they get followed, they get seen, they get
Mhm.
so if you want to talk about roots,
Mhm.
the last root is probably Sevan and Dave,
Mhm.
because Dave is back there. He is back and he's accessible and you can talk to him and you can ask him questions and he's going to answer them.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so funny to me why people don't consider Sevan and his Avengers media. It's so clear that if you want to find out what the pulse of CrossFit is right now, you have to go to them. You have to.
Mhm. But
There's
do you feel like the extra noise around the Avengers muddles the actual message that they're trying to share?
sure. I mean, that's possible.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and again, it's not a judgment. It's just,
Yeah, sure.
they all choose to talk openly and freely about what they want and how they want, and like you said, people are either going to hate them or they're going to love them,
Yeah.
and it's the same with anybody that you listen to.
Yeah, but at
We
the end,
make assumptions and decisions and choices about certain people. So even if they do have the most insight, many people might have already written them off like, you know what, I don't fucking care what they're saying anymore. Because of other things they've said, because of media, because
Yeah,
of
I don't
whatever.
think that the way that media is set up now, and the way that you get attention, like whatever press is good press, whatever bad press is still press. So like as much as people might hate them,
Mhm.
they're still playing in the game.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is that you can still be playing in the game, but people aren't gonna listen.
They're gonna listen. They're gonna listen because A, it's the only place to go, and B, because it's provocative, and it's no matter what, his Avengers, there's someone you wanna listen to. Whether you wanna listen to Taylor, whether you wanna listen to Pedro, whether you wanna listen, to Spin, whether you wanna listen to Friend, whether you wanna listen to Souza,
Mhm.
Caleb, it there's someone on there that you give a crap about and you wanna listen to. So, it's it doesn't matter. I will go back and say that I listened to Sevan's podcast to listen because I wanted to know about CrossFit.
Mhm.
Then he started talking about all of his political things and the things that he cares about and whatever, and it like, I was just like, "Dude, I can't listen to you." And
Mhm.
then I just like, now I've started listening, and I can disagree with him, I can agree with him, I can hear his side and think about it and go, and it's made me a better person doing that. So, if you just wanna hate him because he says some trigger word that you don't like, then you hate him because he says some trigger word that you don't like, but that says more about you than him.
Yeah, what 100%. And I mean, 100%. But that's what I'm also saying is that
Yeah, it
you
might
found him for CrossFit,
yeah, there's
like
obviously gonna be some people that are not open-minded and not willing to listen,
100%. And
and they won't hear the message of CrossFit because of it. I get that that's
that's
what you're saying.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
my point. And it's unfortunate and also it can be very true at the same time. So it's more of like what's the more important message? And for him, they all are.
Yeah.
Every single message that he shares with his Avengers when they speak, with his people that he has on there, every single message that he shares, whether it's CrossFit, political, parenting, relationship, every single thing that he shares is important to him. Every single thing. Because if it wasn't important to him, he wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't waste his time. He wouldn't waste his space. He wouldn't invite people on if he wasn't genuinely curious and interested to learn about that person and whatever that person brings. That also comes with people having the permission to be selective on what is important to them. And when something is not important to them, his politics, for instance, they don't agree with his politics, the rest of his important messages that he chooses to share, they don't care about. So they're missing those important messages about CrossFit and they're missing his passion for
Yeah,
that.
but do you what I mean, and would you rather have whatever, fewer followers on YouTube, but get to say what you wanna say? Or, like, what's the trade-off?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's what's important to you,
Yeah.
and what's important to him is that his speech flows freely,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
but it's undeniable, like, when he does anything about CrossFit, he's got 20,000 views plus.
Mhm.
But those same people get to hear whatever message he wants to put out, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of what Hiller was always saying was just like, "Hey, I'll put out a million Danny Spiegel videos because that's what everybody seems to wanna watch,
Mhm.
as long as I get my message out about this, because more people will watch it if I have more subscribe." Like, I don't I don't fault them for that. Like, if you have a message and you wanna put it out, that's kind of how to do it.
Yeah,
It's
and your delivery is your choice.
yeah.
How you get people to see you and how you get eyes on you and how you get people to listen to whatever you're I mean, you can put anything as a thumbnail.
But also,
clickbait that's going to click on has nothing to do with the thumbnail, that, but at least you started to listen to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, your delivery is your own, and people get to choose and decide if they're going to follow that delivery and engage with that delivery.
also too, I'm curious about this. Like, there was something else that Sevan said in his podcast today, and it was kind of like, hey, are you going to pay the affiliate fee? No matter what it is, or like if it goes up, if it goes down, blah, 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 because you get to be part of the club, because you get to have CrossFit on your banner.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's the same thing with his podcast? Like, he's the Sevan podcast. It's a club. Like the same way CrossFit is a club. Do you want to be part of the club? If you're going to be part of the club, then you have to pay for that club.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be part of the Sevan podcast club, hey man, you're going to have to hear some shit you don't like. You're going to have to digest some things and figure out some things that maybe you didn't want to digest or figure out beforehand. But listen, that's what that club is. And maybe he just same way CrossFit wants to weed out, this, and he said this too, like the stronger people are going to rise to the top when it comes to CrossFit, because you can't be lazy in CrossFit. You can't be, it's CrossFit's going to weed you out.
Mm-hmm.
What's your work ethic? What's your commitment? What's your accountability? Like, CrossFit's going to weed you out. It will.
Mm-hmm.
And the stronger people will rise to the top. Kind of think it's the same thing, and how he models his podcast.
Yeah.
Stronger people are going to rise to the top. Either if you want to debate him, fine, debate him, but come to him with something tangible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't come to him with just because my man doesn't care. He'll just go look words up in the dictionary that he doesn't know. He'll be like, oh, you came to me with a word I don't know. I'll look it up in the dictionary, and then I'll start talking and feed you some words you don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And like, I kind of think it's the same, like, hey, you're in the CrossFit club because you pay the CrossFit affiliate fee, and you want that name on your door. Well, hey, Sevan podcast, affiliate fee, put that name on the door. You know what I mean? Like, it just, I feel like all of his people, all of his friends, all of it, like, you pay your dues because you wanted to, because you wanted to have conversations, because you wanted to learn, because you wanted to stretch your mind a little bit.
You wanted to grow.
Right. And whether or not you wanted, like, you don't have to agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
But if he kind of just made you like, oh, hey, I might want to go look up some shit, I think that's good for him. And I don't think that CrossFit should have to worry about having him attached to them. He is your media source.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Like, it just, that's, damn, man, you have a whole dude that knows how the whole system runs.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how it operates. He knows the athletes. He's friends with the athletes. He's friends with the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's friends with the fans, the diehard fans. And you're not tapping into that.
It's also got to be a very difficult position to be in, because you have both sides that are literally trying to. CrossFit's here, and the CrossFit's being pulled in two separate directions when it comes to having him on the team or not on the team. And that is just because of the audience that decides to be with him or against him.
Yep.
And I believe, again, this is not being like, I have no idea what goes on behind HQ's closed doors, but that has to be a very difficult journey to be on when you have somebody that has been in CrossFit for a very long time and has his own roots in CrossFit. Greg, Dave, Adrian, everybody else that was there from the very beginning of this in the CrossFit games and all that type of stuff. You have somebody that is in those roots. And then you have the up and coming CrossFitters, the CrossFitters that have been around for a long time that don't agree with everything that he says. So it has to be a very difficult position for people to be in when it's like you have groups that are like, well, you can't support him because if you support him, then you support all of these things that are completely against me. I can use myself for example, being a recovering, hyper triggered, anxious type of person where every single thing that was said to me that triggered something in me was very difficult for me to work through until I did my work, until I went through change, until I chose growth, and if you're always triggered by something and you're not willing to be able to have a conversation about something else, it doesn't matter what the person is saying because they're still living on the trigger of
Right.
that word. And I think that when you have groups that are so specific on like, you have to check off all of these boxes to make me feel like you accept me, that's the world we're living in. If you don't check all these boxes off, then you obviously don't care about me as a person. So I take it personal and I'm choosing to not be involved in that.
Yeah, I did that too.
So I'm sure that is a lot of the narrative that is surrounding certain things that he chooses to talk about. And like you said, those boys, his Avengers, when they're all on together, like their humor can be taken two different ways. Some people can consider it humorous, other people can take it offensively. And that is just the world that we're living in where I think CrossFit, or I would hope that CrossFit is trying to navigate this, but it must be very, very difficult to try to navigate when you have someone that says something, then you have people responding to it, and then you have other people saying something, and then he's responding to it.
I wonder if you can kind of compare it to old school comedy, right? Like
Yeah.
I I find him more like a a funny comedian. Like if I was
Uh-huh.
just, when I'm sitting at home watching it by myself and, I'm laughing hysterically,
Right.
like at 99% of their jokes, all of
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
Um, and it's comedy that maybe because I grew up in the 80s and I watched, Eddie Murphy, or I watched, not even the 80s, but just I've watched Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, like it's it's provocative, it's flirting the line, right? Like it's testing you. Can you just take a joke or can you not just take a joke?
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But at the same time, like we don't hold this standards to comedians, right? So like when Andrew Schultz goes and does stand up, when our like what Matt Rife is out right now when he does stand up, when does crowd work, there's a bunch of them that when they're out there and they're doing this, we don't hold them to that standard. We just laugh because we know that it's from a comedian and it's supposed to be funny.
Mhm.
And just because Sevan isn't technically titled a comedian, but it's still it, he's just taking the world and making it less stressful. That's my if you can come down and like you said, like coming from a place of being hyper triggered and
Mhm.
hyper anxiety ridden and hyper and just come down and just laugh at it for what it is.
Mhm.
Like I made jokes all the time about, being a butch lesbian and being, just what's my favorite place to go shopping? Home Depot. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just, I could do that all day too. But you're so scared to do it because you're so scared to get canceled and they aren't. But kind of listening to it and just relaxing and just laughing, sometimes stereotypes are funny. And it's
Mhm.
okay that stereotypes are funny sometimes.
Mhm.
You don't have to be pissed off all the time.
And I also believe through work that I have done and the growth that I've had or whatever is that we also get the choice to decide how we deal with that. Some people just choose to completely separate themselves from certain things. There's just certain things I don't have time for. I don't.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Crowbar Jones. It's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. Pause. Appreciate you.
See, a little bit of laughter goes a long way.
Because
that
dicks
was
can be hard.
that was
so
funny.
That's fine.
That was funny. But we get that choice to decide how we deal with certain situations. You know, in some situations, I don't got it for you. I'm very much that person now where it's like, if it's not for me, then I have that choice to step away. And I think some people have chosen that. And I also think that some people have chosen to go through it, because the growth is when you go through it. The growth is not, but it also depends on the situation and on the topic that is being discussed. There's certain things that I'm just like, I don't got it for you. It's better for me to not be a part of that. There are also things that's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's made me like think a little bit, pause for a second. Oh, I didn't mean to say pause.
Pause. No homo.
To stop for a second and choose, do I just want to completely dismiss this? Or do I want to lean in and listen and actually hear what they are talking about?
Yeah, and everybody's going to come to that at their own time. You know what I mean? And I get that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that. It literally took me a long time to be able to listen to a lot of people. It's not just Sevan. It's, you know, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owen, all the people. Like, I had to be willing to listen to the people that I didn't agree with at the time. And shoot, the biggest example probably is Andrew Tate. I hated his ass. Hated him. And now there's stuff I'm not mad at him about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's taking the time to come down in this hyper triggered world. It helps. Not everybody is saying things to be pissed at you for. And not also too, another wonderful quote that I've always heard is, I'm just throwing something out there. I'll just throw whatever I want out there. If you take it personally, that's something you need to look into. I was just throwing it out there. I wasn't necessarily talking to you, but if you feel like I'm talking to you, then whatever that is, you should probably look into.
It's the same. It's the same quote. If the shoe fits.
I wasn't specifically targeting you. Right.
Then that's a conversation that you get to choose to either dive into, or you either leave the shoe on. If the shoe fits, you either leave the shoe on, lace it up, and get to work and start going through the shit that you don't really want to, or you take it off and you put it back in the box.
Yep. Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to, is that when the shoe, if something comes up and the shoe fucking fits, either lace it up or take it off, you know, and we get that choice. So
word. All right. So that was a little something. That's my Sevan hints for the day. Might make that a thing. I kind of want to do another Ask a Hiller. But
Ask a Hiller,
yeah, I'll probably do another Ask a Hiller soon. But yeah, that's my my Sevan hints and tidbits from his episode. So
cool.
Glitton things.
I'll be back next time.
Boom.